What do you wish you had known before your transplant that you know now? What was unexpected?
No, I can't really say I was unexpected because in my opinion, I was very well educated from all the meetings I had with the transplant people prior to the lung transplant. And I don't remember not having anything that wasn't acceptable or not acceptable that I wasn't aware of. They told me what was going to happen, and pretty much everything that was told to me happened. Waking up after the surgery like that, hooked up to all the instruments into the tree. And then, that they're going to have me get up walking as soon as I possibly can. And like I said, for some reason, I felt that I was very well informed about the whole transplant procedure.
So I guess I was told everything and I read everything, but I guess maybe I was in denial a little bit of what might happen afterwards. And in my case, the different things that happened, I didn't come out of the anesthesia right away for 3 days. So the new lungs developed pneumonia in them, and so they gave me a heavy-duty antibiotic that gave me something called C-Dep, which almost killed me, that led to blood clots. And so I was in intensive care for three weeks, I think, and what I was expecting was a week in intensive care and 4 weeks in the hospital and then to the hotel room. And so they said things like that could happen, but I just put it out of my mind that it wouldn't happen to me. So you got to expect that things are going to happen. Everything isn't textbook.
There's a lot of unknowns when you are into the medical field, and in particular in transplants. One of the things or a number of things that we found afterwards that we wish we would have known about were the things that we wouldn't be able to do in the future. I wouldn't be able to work, in our case, at our ranch, and that was my release, to work outside. So my wife and I switched roles. She now takes care of the outside of the ranch, and I'm the housekeeper. I take care of the inside.
To be honest with you, I think I was given all of the information that I needed. We read it. I received information in the mail, updates. I went through a million tests that I thought I never would ever have to go through. I think that we received all the information we really needed. When you think about it, the unexpectedness is someone had to die in order for me to live. And you never know when it's going to happen.
There are a lot of things that I wish I had known then that I know now. And chief among those really is, I wish I had known how much support there would be here at UCSF for me after my surgery. I didn't really know what my life would be like if I would just sort of be turned out after this procedure and sort of left to fend for myself. And as it turned out, it was the start of a whole new chapter after my transplant. It's when the system here, to me, really kicked in. And now I had support for, all aspects of recovery and starting a new life with a transplanted organ. Well, as you know, what we're told, and we're probably still told this today at the time of transplant, is that there's about a 5-year life expectancy post-transplant. So no one said, oh, he'll still be here in 21 years. I don't know if that would have made a difference to me, but what I do know after 21 years and, can convey is that it's so important to take care of yourself. However you are, whoever you are, wherever you are, just taking care of yourself is so important.
I wish I had known before my transplant how good life was going to be afterward. I was just so convinced that I was going to struggle that I drug out making the decision to have the transplant. And my life has been amazing. I have literally regained everything that I lost from being sick. And if I had known that ahead of time, if I had had that understanding, I would have chosen to do it a lot sooner. I think the actual amount of time that it took me to heal emotionally from the transplant was really unexpected for me. I thought that the physical part would be hard, but it was actually the emotional part that's really taken me a long time to really process. And I feel like even now, over 11 years later, I'm still feeling some of the feelings that I had back then, but it's great that I'm finally able to go through that. I think the main feeling that I really wasn't able to express or experience when I was really sick was just my sadness about what I was going through. I was fighting for my life. I just did not have time to feel anything other than just determination to go forward. And now, all these years later, the sadness is starting to really come up, and it's been surprising to me because I thought I was past all of that. But now that I'm healthy and I'm able to feel all of those emotions, they're coming. But it feels good that I'm able to finally really go through this and process it and kind of come to the other side of this whole journey. One of the things that I was really curious about with the transplant was what the scar was going to look like. And they explained that it would be a clamshell incision where they would actually cut almost like armpit to armpit. And as you can see, that's exactly what they did. There were staples after the surgery. It kind of looked like a little train track, but those were removed soon after. And what I have today is actually just a really pale pink scar that you can't really even see unless I point it out.
I think there are two things. I didn't know after the transplant that I wouldn't be able to talk and wouldn't be able to write for a little bit of time. So that made communicating what was going on with me to the nurses and doctors and to family members and so forth. It made it a little difficult. I physically just couldn't write. I was shaking and trembling. I couldn't talk. I was trached. I had a trach, so that was part of it. But I just was extremely weak, and I lost another 30 pounds in the time from the transplant to the time I woke up after transplant, which was about 5 days. So, and I know every patient's different, but for me, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, and I couldn't write. So I didn't expect that. And then also there's a, psychological component to it too. For me, I spent a lot of time pre-transplant thinking I wanted my life back. But even after that, you get a lot of it back. Like I said, definitely a high quality of life, but there's some things that don't come back, and there's a lot of changes you have to make. For example, I can no longer eat sushi. Heartbreak. It's not easy for me now to just pick up in the morning some days and just hit the ground running. Some days I need to give myself 2 or 3 hours to get the energy to move. Some days I wake up feeling normal. I have to be conscious of the fact that I need to take my medications at certain times throughout the day, and I got to carve out times during the week for whatever kind of appointment there might need to be, lab draws or whatever, ultrasounds, so whatever. And then there's a couple of other issues that came from my condition and some of the medications that I take. So, it's still a ride even after you get the lungs, after you get your transplant. There's still a lot of work to do, but it is life and you accept it.
The unexpected result of transplant was my inability to walk. I had no idea that atrophy would set in and that I would really have to teach myself to walk again and how hard that would be. And so in a support group that I run in Concord, that's one thing I just really try to impress on people who are in the pre-transplant stage, is that they need to be as strong as possible, attending pulmonary rehab to get strong and to focus on in their minds that they are going to have to learn to walk again. For some it will be harder than others. But that was the biggest surprise to me. Is there anything else that I wished I had known before transplant that I know today? No, I guess my life has changed. Something funny as a result of transplant is that my husband says he's on wife number 7. He's only been married to me. We've been married almost 43 years. And he's had one wife his entire life. But he says he's on wife number 7. Because I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly deciding I want to do something different. I want to do additional things. I find out maybe I don't like it or it's not really something interesting to me, so I try something else. So I'm wife number 7.
I wish that I had known that that I would get a lot of that they would give you a lot of steroids, which I didn't know. And that's about the only thing that I can think of. The one thing that was unexpected was right after surgery, they told me that I was diabetic, and I was diabetic because of the steroids, and that sort of bummed me out for a while. But I've obviously acclimated to that.
Things that I wish I would have known about before my transplant, I learned while I was in the hospital. The main things for me, I was told after I got out of the ICU, you can't have raw cheese, you can't have raw milk, and I loved eating raw stuff. Rare meat, sushi, that was really that. I'm like, okay, well, that would have been nice to know. And then also, once they took the bandages off, I didn't know that I was going to have a metal plate over my sternum forever. So that, I wish someone would have told me that as well, because that took a second to like look at and get used to. I was really thin. I was like 82 pounds. And so it was kind of protruding out of my chest. And I was like, well, this is just very noticeable. But now I've gained 30 pounds, so you can't even tell it's there. And I don't even know it's there anymore. But those would be the biggest things. And they just seem minute now, so.
What I wished I would have known before transplant was maybe some of the side effects of the medications. I did have some challenges with shaking and insomnia, so it took a little while to understand that that was coming from the medications and it was all manageable. For me, what was unexpected about the transplant, when I woke up, I did experience quite a bit of pain. I was not able to have the epidural for various reasons. So to wake up and be in pain like that, I was expecting to be uncomfortable. But mostly the pain I felt was in my sternum and extending out through my rib cage into my back.
I don't know if it would have made much of a difference to my experience after transplant, but I wish I had thought more about the year of recovery after discharge from the hospital. I was prepared for the wait. I was prepared for the call. I was prepared for the surgery, or, mentally prepared. I was prepared for the hospitalization, and I was kind of prepared as much as I could for the 6 weeks in the hotel after discharge from the hospital. But that's as far as I had thought or considered. So the year after that first initial delicate year, shall we say, was a bit of a surprise, just because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about how I'd feel, hadn't thought about what I would do, hadn't thought about the physical challenges that might come up, hadn't thought about what kind of help I would need after being discharged from the hotel. So I'm not sure. All of our experiences are so different. I'm not sure that would have been helpful necessarily, but it would have lessened the surprise, I think. And I was surprised. I just didn't know what to do with myself. My job was to recover, but I didn't know what that meant, really. What did I do with myself all day long? What did it mean to work on recovery, besides walking and going to hospital visits, which was plenty enough, but it was a weird kind of non-job feeling. It was hard.
The thing that I wished I had known or had a better knowledge of is how the medication affected me. Now, I was told that, yeah, you may have a reaction to some of the medications, and I guess that was enough to expect it, but I didn't know how it would affect me personally. It was kind of a shock until I really found out, hey, this is normal, this is acceptable, and it's easy to work through. Then it wasn't too bad. Right?
Looking back at what I wish I would have known going into the transplant was how hard it was going to be from a recovery standpoint. I felt since I was young that I would be able to bounce back fairly quickly and had some fairly optimistic goals. And while they were somewhat reasonable, it was a lot harder than I expected it to be. The other piece of this transplant that I would say was unexpected and a great thing that is something that I think everybody should keep their eyes out for is the people you're going to meet, whether it's the transplant team or friends. And I've had a fantastic experience of having two people that had their transplant at the same time. Roughly, we were staying at the same hotel. We found each other by accident. It's pretty obvious when you see people walking around with a mask what's probably happened. And we're close friends, and we're basically each other's support structure. None of us have sought out necessarily a support group because we're available, whether it's by text, email, phone, or screaming at each other if they're needed. And I hope that that's been a positive influence on them. I know it has been on me, because anytime I've had a rough spot, we've been able to get through it together.